History is not what we are told. It is what survived the fire.
History is not what we are told. It is what survived the fire. For 2 millennia, a specific sequence of Hebrew characters remained buried in the salt-crusted caves of Qumran, hidden not by accident, but by a primal fear. We have been taught to call them angels. The book of Genesis uses the term Bene Ha-Elohim, the sons of God. But the ancient scrolls found in the Judean desert use a much darker, more technical designation, Irin, the Watchers. There is a contradiction that the modern church refuses to address. In the official canon, these beings are nameless shadows, yet in the forbidden dossier of the Dead Sea Scrolls, specifically Fragment 4 Q201, a name was found, not a title, a name that carries a frequency, a name that, according to the ancient scribes, was never meant to be spoken by human vocal cords. Today we reopen the case. And we are not just looking at a myth. We are looking at a forensic report of a celestial rebellion. Who was the being behind the name that was erased from your Bible? In 1947, a Bedouin boy threw a stone into a cave and changed our understanding of reality. Among the hundreds of scrolls found, one stood out for its state of preservation and its terrifying content, the Book of Enoch. Why was this text, once revered by the earliest Christians, suddenly declared apocrypha? Why was it hunted down and burned across the Roman Empire? The answer lies in the technicality of the Watchers. The term Irin doesn't just mean those who look. In the original Aramaic and Hebrew roots, it implies the unsleeping ones, beings who do not require the biological cycle of rest. They were the sentinels of the upper firmament. But the scrolls reveal a glitch in the system. The Irin weren't just watching humanity, they were studying our architecture, our biology, and our potential. And then one of them did the unthinkable. He whispered a name. To understand the secret name, we must look at the location of the breach, Mount Hermon. In Hebrew, Hermon shares the same root as Haram, which means anathema or Aban. 200 watchers descended upon the summit. They didn't just land, they bound themselves by a mutual curse. This was a tactical strike against the cosmic order. Most people know the name Semjaza, but linguistic analysis of the 2,000-year-old fragments reveals that Semjaza is a composite title. It comes from Shem, meaning name, and Asa, meaning rebellion. His real identity, the one etched in the hidden scrolls, was far more specific. He wasn't just a leader, he was a master of frequencies. The secret name revealed in the scroll is linked to the art of transmutation. He taught humans how to change the state of matter. Why would a name be dangerous? In the ancient world, a name was not a label. It was the definition of essence. To know the secret name of a watcher was to possess the key to their specific technology. The scroll identifies a specific being, Asael. In modern Bibles, this was sanitized into Azazel. But the Qumran fragments are precise. Asael, the one whom God made. The dossier shows that Asael's crime was not just physical. He was the one who revealed the unutterable secrets of the stars. He taught the cutting of roots in pharmacology. This wasn't primitive herbalism. One of the scrolls suggests a level of genetic and chemical knowledge that shouldn't have existed 5,000 years ago. He taught humanity how to make the invisible visible. He opened the third eye, and in doing so, he blinded the soul. There is a recurring pattern in the Celestial Dossier. Each watcher's name is a distorted reflection of a divine attribute. If God is the creator of light, the watcher Barakiel taught the path of the lightning. Barakiel, from Barak, meaning lightning, in El, meaning God. To the ancients, this wasn't about meteorology. It was about the speed of thought and the capture of energy. Look closely at ancient artifacts. Are we looking at mythology, or are we looking at a 2,000-year-old record of a technological transfer? The scrolls found in Cave 4 describe instruments of bronze that could track the cycles of the moon with precision that rivals modern telemetry. How did primitive man learn the math of the cosmos? The scrolls give the credit to the names we were told to forget. We must address the most disturbing part of the 2,000-year-old evidence. The names weren't just taught, they were imprinted. The Irin looked upon the daughters of men and saw a biological vessel. The scrolls used the word malalel, to pollute or to profane. The result was the Nephilim, But the scrolls add a detail that is often missed. The Nephilim were not just large, they were vampiric. The text of the Watchers says they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh. They were consuming the genetic code of the earth. And at the center of this biological chaos was the secret name, a code that allowed the Watchers to tether their celestial essence to biological matter. If this information is so vital, why is it missing? In the 4th century, the Council of Laodicea made a move that would echo through history. They scrubbed the Book of Enoch from the official record. They claimed it was for theological purity, but the dossier suggests a different motive. If the people knew the names of the Watchers, they could recognize their influence. These beings weren't just destroyed in the flood. The scrolls say they were bound in the valleys of the earth for 70 generations. If you calculate the timeline from the era of the scrolls to our modern day, the 70 generations are coming to an end. The names that were erased are beginning to resurface in our subconscious. Let us look at the evidence. This is Fragment 4, Q201. It is one of the most complete lists of the Watcher leaders ever found. Among the names is Hermione, not the mountain, but the being for whom the mountain was named. He was the Lord of the Curse. The scribe who wrote this 2,000 years ago used a specific ink, a mixture of carbon and a metallic residue that has allowed the letters to survive while the leather around them rotted. Why the metallic residue? Some researchers suggest the ink was consecrated, a way to trap the power of the name on the page, so it wouldn't escape into the mind of the reader. There is a theory in ancient linguistics called the primordial resonance. It suggests that certain sounds can affect the physical world. The names of the Watchers, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Ramiel, all end with L, the name of the Creator. They are using the source code of the universe to authorize their own rebellion. When these names were spoken in the caves of Qumran, the scribes reported vibrations in the stone. This wasn't just reading, it was an invocation. Across every culture, we find the same story. The teachers from the sky, the Oans, the Quetzalcoatl, but only the Hebrew scrolls give us the dossier. Only they give us the specific phonetics. As we conclude the first part of this investigation, we must look at the final warning left by the Essenes, the keepers of the scrolls. They didn't hide these scrolls to preserve them for a museum. They hid them because they knew a time would come when the veil would thin. A time when the Watchers would no longer be bound by the 70 generations. In the next part of this dossier, we will reveal the most dangerous name of all, the one being who was not bound in the valleys, but who remained in the shadows of our world, orchestrating the return of his brothers. The name that connects the 2,000-year-old scroll to the technology you are using to watch this video right now. We left the dossier at a critical juncture. While most of the Watchers were bound in the Tartarus of the earth, the 2,000-year-old scrolls found at Qumran whisper of a terrifying anomaly. Not all were captured. There is a name mentioned in the fragments, Gadriel. In the book of Enoch, specifically chapter 69, he is identified as the one who showed the children of men all the blows of death. And the dossier suggests that while the serpent in Genesis was the catalyst, Gadriel was the engineer. He was the one who led Eve astray, not with an apple, but with knowledge of the blade and the art of deception. The scroll is technical. It doesn't say he tempted them. It says he programmed the shift in human consciousness. And unlike the others, his name does not appear in the lists of those bound until the judgment day. He remained in the aura, the atmosphere. Why does a 2,000-year-old scroll matter to you today? Because of the Watcher Penemue. The dossier reveals that Penemue taught mankind the art of writing with ink and paper. To the ancient scribes, this wasn't a gift. It was a curse. The text says, "For men were not created for such a purpose, to give confirmation to their good faith with pen and ink." When by externalizing our memory into symbols, Penemue effectively hacked the human soul. We stopped trusting our internal connection to the divine and started trusting the encoded word. Today we call this data. The Watchers knew that once you control the medium of information, you control the reality of the observer. Let's look at the smoking gun of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the timeline. The text states the Watchers would be bound for 70 generations. What constitutes a biblical generation? If we use the standard 70-year cycle, 70 times 70 equals 4,900 years. If we use the more ancient 40-year cycle, the math changes. It is no coincidence that the scrolls were revealed to the world in 1947, the exact moment humanity split the atom and birthed the digital age. The unsealing of the scrolls was the technical signal that the binding was weakening. The very place where they descended is now a highly fortified military and surveillance hub. The Watcher's dossier isn't about the past. It's a real-time status report. We return to the name Asa-El, or Azazel. The scrolls describe him being cast into a place called Dudael, the opening of the earth. There he was covered with sharp and jagged stones and left in darkness. But the dossier adds a detail. And let him be led to the fire on the great day. The fire described is not biological. It is described as a frequency of purification. The Watchers are essentially radionics beings, entities made of a light that has been corrupted into a lower spectrum. When we speak the secret names found in the Qumran fragments, we are essentially tuning our biological antenna to that corrupted spectrum. This is why the scribes warned that the names must never be uttered by the uninitiated. Are the Watchers returning, or were they never gone? The 2,000-year-old scroll mentions a second wave of influence. In the Book of Giants, another fragment from Qumran, the sons of the Watchers, the Nephilim, have dreams of a great tablet being submerged in water, leaving only 3 names visible. This signifies the preservation of the dark seed. Even after the flood, the names survived. They were carried in the DNA of the survivors, or etched into the very frequency of the Earth's magnetic field. Why do the world's elites congregate at these specific coordinates? Because the dossier shows that these are access points. The names are the keys. There is one name in the scroll that the Vatican has spent centuries trying to obscure. It is the name of the Watcher who was tasked with the end of the secret. His name is Castaja. The scroll identifies him as the 5th Watcher. He is the one who showed humans the bitings of spirits and demons and the bitings of the embryo in the womb so that it may be destroyed. Castaja taught the technology of separating the spirit from the flesh. This is the ultimate objective of the Celestial Rebellion: to create a world where the divine image is replaced by a synthetic copy. The 2,000-year-old scroll was not a history book. It was a warning, a dossier on the enemy's tactics. The secret name isn't a word you say. It's a system you live in. As you close this file, ask yourself, why was the Book of Enoch found before the birth of the digital age? And why, after 2,000 years of silence, are these names suddenly being spoken again in the halls of power, in the depths of the internet? The Watchers were bound so that we might have time to remember who we are. But the time of the 70 generations is a clock that does not stop. The question is no longer, who are the Watchers? The question is, are you already following the name they whispered in your ear? The archive is never truly closed.